Framwato aha Ctv na adwade obenimosmen da no ya etoso adue no ebrason se de awia pram to brekase ebesomo na nsemo a ye de esomo awie ye ko manum rasa badwafie dom kase ye wo homba no de ne yewra oseche mensa abonsu de nsema atodwa ya wo chese bananum dwa pa dom kuma no se de osidwa wanum no o man body bobia no MPP aban no na aye.
Article 67, which compels the President to deliver the message of the State of the Nation, does not directly relate to the content of the message.
We na nom kito e wo ho so mba no deni ono so de atodwa wo kire se wo hwe wo man no pa se de esikasam atete apansam ewie sam wako ne adudie sabrei mampani na nadodan kwakufu ado ne MPP apan wom de yakọ achi 1983 afia pema hankono adu wo twemiensa ene wom de Ghana akwakogina.
When I've heard that the president tried to blame COVID.
Abedi e kire so de nsem atodwa a wo kire so oman no ehinam ehun nsem no yera Emmanuel Amakofibu a wo se enka aban yi ba ye na de NDC fo aye ohanche mu be ye de wo twene num wom de enum pe ya aka so a sabre nka enyinam ye ni ho amane bia na so sabre aban no asobra chienti wo ye de ope.
But guess what, Mr. Speaker? We didn't meet it. And you know what this government did? They just moved the goalpost and said, well, we can't achieve it, so now we'll push it to 2030.
Our Frabika Hona, Yadeba Smooth area from Tubacasi Midi, and Hajia Bintu Saana, ye frasia. Near the kind of Madam Russia Begrafie, don't Cassia Banu Denny, Yera, say, men Sambosu. And Robert Shremo says, Sebi, Peninsula, one of Donra, Nadia Sebi, a war. Near Bano Minor Pass, Yen Ye, Nayan Fanyama to 2 years, Casamina and Aswa, Ghana, and be any more Samoa. Some people, Amanu Kuno, and one Bemoa, or Marisicasam Etutoye. Yero say, men Sambosu Chese. Ye tu asra no ntu bia beka so mo rewu nti eba ne sa no na NDC fo ne de ende ayampiato kasa tenten eni de de yosa nanso se ye ka wo mo abene pa e wo sikasemu e for my Ghana ho de a MPP aban no ene betimi aye bi e de amoman no.
Article 67, which compels the President to deliver the message of the State of the Nation, does not directly relate to the content of the message. However, the state of the country is the situation or set of circumstances that pertains in the country now. And the present message is an account of the pertaining condition of the country as he finds it. The President at the very outset admitted that any honest assessment of our country's situation would necessarily involve, and I'm quoting him, the gravity of the economic situation of our country and how we can quickly stabilize the economy and work our way back to the period of rapid economic growth, unquote. Continuing, the President did not mince words when he stated, and again I quote, our currency has been buffeted, our inflation rates have been very high, and for the first time in our lives, debt exchanges have become the language of everyday conversation, unquote. The Speaker, that is brutal frankness. A lot of critics have jumped onto the bandwagon to blame the current administration for where we are today. And it's the reason why the President stated it would necessarily have to include what state it was in yesterday, the state it is in today, and what it will be in tomorrow, based on reasonable grounds of expectations. The Speaker, the President took us down memory lane when he related to his own statement in 2020. To be precise, February 20th, 2020. The evidence of Akufo-Addo's performance is in the standard economic indicators. The Speaker, my colleague, has related to it. GDP growth averaging 7% between 2017 and 2019. Gradually reducing inflation such that inflation hit its lowest level, 7.8% in January 2020. And that is since the rebirth of constitutional democracy. Having a fiscal deficit below 5% of GDP for 3 consecutive years, something that the NDC could never achieve. That was the first ever in 40 years. Mr. Speaker, having a surplus balance of trade for 3 years running, That was the first time in over 20 years. My colleague, the minority leader, was the deputy finance minister. Let him relate to these facts. Were they able to achieve that? 1/4 of that performance. Mr. Speaker, talk is cheap.
Minority leader or can I say yera at forcing and one of the boss so ya watch her say. And penny such a marriage and a marriage and a boy and a baby a drunity or so much sense in Mumagana 40 a sea pa. You're at forcing the somewhat to ya watch her say a mamma bonnet and a queen of fast water 2 years ago someone never a yesica crabby about Ancasianoa. So what Tracy care boomware near with Tracy Canasa and I'm so Emma inflation knows I be a pigeon moon 53% ya and why it in year pa. Now what said your comwa banny and what's rabani Gani sika samono aye basa no anasa abre uhunu se 1983 ekomo eba aye no eno na mampani na nadan kwa kufuado ene Dr. Muhammad Bawumia omde o mai Ghana no akwakọ wi.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, certain misconceptions were created that most of the resources that were made available to His Excellency the President and the government were used for the purposes of the construction of roads. Mr. Speaker, as part of the journey that I will be taking you through, I will ensure that this major misconception is actually cured. In doing so, Mr. Speaker, let me say that in the year 2017, this NPP administration, led by His Excellency the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, received tax and non-tax revenue amounting to 39.6 billion Ghana cedis. Tax and non-tax revenue, 2017 alone. Again, they borrowed an amount of 20 billion Ghana cedis in the same year. So in the year 2017, total resource envelope, in other words, monies that were made available to this administration amounted to 59.6 billion Ghana cedis in 1 year. At the time, the NDA exchange rate was 4.4, $1 is 4 cedis, 4 pesos. So if you are to convert it, Mr. Speaker, the government received revenues, total money for the purposes of managing the affairs of this country, amounting to 13.5 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, $13.5 billion. $13.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, out of this $13.5 billion, he spent only 187 million Ghana cedis, $1 million for the purposes of construction of roads. In other words, out of the 59.6 billion Ghana cedis, they spent only 830 million Ghana cedis for the purposes of roads. This amounts to 1.9% of the total resource envelope. So you receive 59.6 billion cedis in 1 year and spend 830 million Ghana cedis for the purposes of the construction of roads. Again, Mr. Speaker, even if you stretch this to include capital expenditure, the government only spent 6.3 billion Ghana cedis out of the 59 billion Ghana cedis only for the purposes of capital expenditure, representing only 10.6% of the total resource envelope. The question one will ask is that for the year 2017, a big amount of 54 billion Ghana cedis went into consumption. 54 billion Ghana cedis went into consumption. Mr. Speaker, my question is, where is the money? 54 billion Ghana cedis 1 year. Yet, Mr. Speaker, all of it went into consumption.
Dom kuma ba no den yera to forcing no kire mo se sika abo man mu pa se ka de ye kwan kra ne ade a MPP amanyokuo no wontimi mu ho akonta enufoni ene ekokoshwe ye no wa kirem ya wa se report say se sika no kra ho akonta buo na ma wo he kom ene amane ya ba oman no mu a 1983 kom ene na MPP e de abre oman no.
Mr. Speaker, when I've heard that the president tried to blame COVID, and also Russia-Ukraine war, as if the bombs that Russia is throwing at Ukraine are landing in Accra. Mr. Speaker, certainly that is not the case. Mr. Speaker, clearly, the truth is that the crisis we are going through is self-inflicted. the crisis we are going through is self-inflicted. Let's look on the issue of inflation. On the issue of inflation, the Bank of Ghana, under His Excellency President Akufo-Addo, has been most abused in the history of our country. It's the most abused central bank in the history of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I remember in the year 2016, the then running mate to President Akufo-Addo, now the Vice President, had called a press conference and he has said that he has worked at the Bank of Ghana before and he knows exactly that the money is in Ghana. The Speaker, not knowing that all what he was trying to say is that he knows that the Bank of Ghana can print money for government for the purposes of government expenditure. The Speaker, the central bank, all what they do is to print money. And the inflation that we are seeing here is caused largely by the printing of currency by the Bank of Ghana. The Speaker, this printing started in 2019. They printed 2019, immediately when IMF left, printed 2020, printed 2021, and they are printing 2022 and 2023. The Speaker, I can confirm to you that from January to date, they have so far printed 4 billion Ghana cedis. January to date, so they are still printing. When will the Bank of Ghana stop printing? Last year, 2022, they printed 50 billion Ghana cedis. 2021, they printed 43 billion Ghana cedis. 2020, they printed 35 billion Ghana cedis. So this is a bank that prints money. No wonder we are seeing inflation at 53%. Now I'm told it's 52%. Now Ghana's inflation, we call it hyperinflation. We have seen hyperinflation the first time since 1983. First time since 1983. So all what President Akufo-Addo has done is to take us back to 1983. Mr. Speaker, we are in trouble. We are in trouble because all what we are seeing is self-inflicted. When His Excellency the Vice President told us then in opposition, that they know that there's money in Ghana, he was telling the people of Ghana that he knows the central bank has a printing machine and they will print money for us. No wonder we are seeing a lot.
Yegusu omano mra shebedwafie dom kumano ombano deni abedi echire yera Emmanuel Ama Kofi Bua okoyele mbela baton peso so a wono ne amfo no mra shebedwani wono so de atwedwa kirem se ndisi aban no bra no wa ban mu no bo homodi ye pa nyinam okeka ne masiania ma ohanche mu be edu wotwe num ene otime predi kokoduru ya na kenumpe na chese edu kono nanka oman no afie ntoma pefra ewe nyinam ho nsam no so aban ba ye amampani na nado dan kwakufu ado da wa no no de chese ewiem enyinam ne bi solar energy no no okire a wode aka hu bi a chese okọ oman na tena kese flaster house ono mo a eno ene di enyinum ho ha ohunu se nua ena mpanifo buogu aso mu a won fa hye chese fia bi kura so wo wanu mo no won fa enka ho.
When I listen to the State of the Nation in page 20, there was something interesting the President stated. Mr. Speaker, we are now at the most difficult stage of electricity provision around the country. The parts that we are left with are very difficult to assess. And then he talked about access rate. Mr. Speaker, there's nothing difficult about it. We left this government access rate over 85%. And we were close to getting universal access to electricity. All this government had to do was add another 5% to get us to the 90% for us to get access to electricity. We are in the 7th year of the Nanadu government, and we are still struggling to move from 85 to 90%. And now the President says it's a very difficult task. Mr. Speaker, let this House remember that after we have done all the work in the upstream sector, after we brought generation capacity of over 1,000 megawatts. We now decided to do something at the value chain where it matters, making sure that ECG is infused with resources to make sure that they can pay for the electricity that is supplied. So, Mr. Speaker, we negotiated and got $500 million. Let nobody forget what happened to that $500 million. This same government led by Nanadu corruptly brought in PDS, and to make long story short, the Americans got angry and they took their 2 billion away. Mr. Speaker, the reason why we got stuck not completing the reform at the downstream electricity sector was because we never finished it. This is how it was botched by the Nanado administration. And nobody should forget the PDS. Today, the president is talking about how we can basically get access to electricity. Mr. Speaker, it even gets well with renewable energy. We have not moved anywhere. In fact, the only thing we've been able to do for 7 years is to put solar lights at the Flagstaff House. Yes, Mr. Speaker, but this is important because we brought the renewable energy bill and we said that by 2020, we should have at least 10% of our energy mix with renewable energy sources. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? We didn't meet it. And you know what this government did? They just moved the goalpost and said, well, we can't achieve it, so now we'll push it to 2030.
Yekwa amanyosemo ejumako enya na siam abato mpeso so ene yekwa kopie mu na ukọ hono mu a era to force wono ene oman no mra sebedwani na wa kire se sabre amfo na kire nto aso nti ne krata wo fa yesko ko gire mu akọ premium sie nto no so aba na wonyina manfo no entemu se oman no mra sebedwani no sabre obi ene hono mu otimi fa krata ne bi enti sabre wojina kontinkro ya wode ne krata akoma mpenefo a wo kire se obo adwuma biom e de amanfo ye wo ejumako enya na siam aba
wo Abraham Rashibetwani ya owo ejumako enya esiam ya wasan akofan krata forms se opeso san ejina bium edi ema amanyuku no ewo ejumako enya esiam one yen century ni twetwe enkomo no di twa se eneyi adehronti enampote ya wasan akofa forms se obesan ejina edi amamu ne se ne oman mu se de ayeden na MPP amanyuku no ene Ghana mampeni na aredokoko fado mama se de enema enko yin fama Ghana fo no opeso san ejina na omo ebo na omochi titru ejumako enya esiam edifrisa ohawo no emu
okaze oya prope Ghana omanen numayet MPP aban wasay omanen wa twehena sanechi wode yena kwechin 15 years and more baby o nanado danko akufu ado na numia kenoforiata na naban wetu Ghana se kodun same na awo yamfa yen ho ambo afar na ya boa mo man Ghana mbani nyima yan danche onkoyi oninti na afi mede mu si wode mesan so megina bio na menyimde member aboko MP a otodo enumi eduma ne kese na nkasa owo yenyim Ghana fo ye mistake ye to aba onsem fata ye de ma omampanyi na ado na naba oniyinde inde dodo no wo bre ansa na wetiti omane bi sikasama ya basa masisia Ghana yezeka umpa yentumi yentua yenkawo wona yezi wankawo amanoni na yentumi ntua sisi amampeyi no nam na ne sade yem oro pachaw ikro to kro okwa Germany okwa China osema pabucho memfa busan mo fanchem busan da busan na mokwaje mentuma mfanya ase papa yena nkote e ba Ghana ha yem papafo yenuanom a sebe wode won sika koto Ghana bonds de wode won sika bo Ghana bosa abane simintu ntua wakawo
okasa wiye ena NDC amanyoko no hwehwefo ya owo ejumako enya esiam abato empeso so nuafo Andrews Kojo Duedu ono so ejebra orensem we etudwa
tenda na honorable atofo sina opede osano ogine bi na ejumako enya na esiam yeto abama okojina ya nemu Ghana mbese bego Endi sambaye ukubu ekwanto de obiara osafata no opede ogina omba fankrata na onkoji duma na onfambra so yewie nipa bien abasa regina endi sofie besia ya to aba ye okra ye den yepen wo bo ekwanto mu no endi sofie nara was honorable to force ignore yen osafata obiara se obazo obayen na honorable to force no eden oreye nto ho hia de obian beden beba ebegina onope no azono ho agba afra ma ndi si de obesem abepro na we kwegina ya na mo Ghana mbese bego eduma no wa start only ina mi na we ehun de honorable to force no original ye kwara na ye start ya ye eduma eden ye zaman ye nye abato fa eden akasa
Yakwa pomidi hu semu private health facilities Ghana omde nsema twudwa ya watchere se sabre ni bra papa empenisi emfa ya se hunu enso aben nso komo ayanti ene onde won semu to mpanifo anim se mprempren de ense echi ba ya wode ya adwuma se kwa ya sabia na okra bia na ya hwam no aduro kwa ni ade no nya de se wono wode ba be ya adwuma bi mu a wahiem a watchere se wapa odwumadi ne hwehwe afofra wode bedwuma ene wo bo aban na no ho ba se wo mo aboa no ho sanse mpanisi ofra se ebu nsuo ntamo a ene wani eyekoko
One Shemia say, and a president Emma Ekwoyi, Ora Donko Boache, editu dra watch or Hawa, and National Health Insurance Scheme so, one FM or Mojumemo, what did you dra watch say, a choir bino efaso, editor Winsika Emma Wanamono, was a Yana Sikana Chadodo. They say into 1 month Mimpo and Yaska and Justnet, average Ghana Revenue Authority for Sikampo, and Yadia say one to me Etiama Wamo and Tamuso. Ora Samo Donko, Etwaso, editu jase, a Yadia say Abino Edi Wanamo ye papa, Empo Abino empese wanum ebeye woyechere nanso se bosome no ekwawie yenso a enya de se abino etumi ede wonum sika ema womo nanso wade to abino nim se efri April bosome ni de dikan eyade se ansa na wonum be yalefo bi awayare sabia no gise nipa no ekiste sika afei eno achi ne wonum ebeye woyechere chenchereche pa ede akira abino
ye maduma ne yete yes can todu yes can salaries yes can into your life bill yes can into your senate yes can into your tax Jiayu, Temple Diana Eka, Idian. A dose of water, and then I get to the beer to you. And then near my idea, and honey, your my idea, the beer too. It's your ma, Jumana, Una man, your bread. Any time go to a canton, how much? That's how you mean. Now, any Japan and per se, any buying any young science, we per se. We will buy a Sabia, near Benisca. Nenso no senya yeti bebia ya hwe ye ho how we find ourselves where we find ourselves now e ma ye kwan e ma ye nkasa ye best person free because apan untua meka abe ye dene se menye sika e wo baabi e de bedu
Enuachi ena owura yiri enin bedu Boaten Adwoa a oye CEO Emma Vednan Medical Center no ewo Kumase wo Asante Mantemo editu dwa wo kyeremu se wo hwe yarefo no ekwan be so na ya na ehinshira na so se de wonum enya sikampo no de atonuro e de ama ayarefo no ensem a wono so editu dwa no ebini
yarefo no yarefo no ne yade a ode beba ne so eduro na ye de ma no eni nti wo behu no obi ba wo private hospital ana facility a oba ebia ne yare ne ye kakra bi enti eduro kitwa bi na wo de ama no obi so oba wotumi hu se ne yare no ehia eduro a ne bo eden na ne yare no so ye yare a obetumi aba ho mprimpi enti eno so ewo eduro a ye de ma no enti eduro no de ejina yade no ani pa ne de beba no bo no so ye den ye wo nuro no se de meka se eduro efo eni system no mu biem sanse afi ani afi ba ko etwemu de bia be ko dwaso no na ya to aduro no mu be ko dwaso no ni ya to aduro nti aduro no de kwa na ekofo ama ne bua ye den enti ene de ehadwen pa
Ni kura mono ena President Emma Private Health Facility Association Asante Mantemo Ora Francis Fosu editu dwa woche mu se kwan ya private health insurance companies for no ede wonom enam so no afei de wo se wonom abrepa yi ensem a wono so editu dwa no ebini
ena awie muhu e wa ha ni dwumadi kase ya Private Health Facilities Association of Ghana ye kan ye kasafa ayansa edumaku a enhye abanse ankrankra die no ana ye nkabo mu abeye dwumadi kase tise ibota nyina ne se be bekan ye ho abom ni atimi ade ehwepa a esoni ade asom oman Ghana ma ye wo akansie ahodo bebre efa se de munim no National Health Insurance Authority so market to asem se eduma bi a enkoye na ni other private health insurance companies are omu dwumadi edi enya omu de no kwa ne ha ya adwo se wo ankrankra bi etuetu musika ma wo se omu yare afa tua omu yare hwe ho ka ogisika na untua omu ka
Yakoka so ampotem ho ne akɔhwɛ mantemu mpuntuo mafo ye wo kpɔmote oni abriye pa so akwantempo nyina enye ne bre no so so ɔto aban so so a wɔyere wo ho to wie pa nti nei wɔde adesrɛdeɛ nam wɔ mmra hyɛbadwani maame ha akumsen sɛ nuru aban nanim wɔ na wɔhwɛ sɛ aso ye hwe akwantempo adwumadie so no obetumi ato nkɛsɛ wɔ mpotem ho no wɔhwɛ siesie wakwan nyina san sɛ akɔbɛde ho nsɛm ayɛden ama wɔyie pa.
Well, Abradishia no any century Samuel Ado etwe enkomo eno mode to twa se sambrady and pembi on be fast bridge no esunu egema yese mo kwa edansen yemu sanse said the bridge no akwakoye no ayemhwehye nkwa ene jomo eno nti omo fa Ctv Kasiepo ede ato abanenim se enmenim ye no aban no enhwe na ka bridge no omo nye bibi emfa ho ema omo
pacho bridge dia ayi dia ayi nam so a enya so wonam so kra na woyem hyehyew ti estra ban ye pa ne kyewala yesre no me ye bibi fa beji human na nse nkola nyina nkonta amasi nkosku because esuro wom nyame nya adom de atwetwe so nyame anya adom a wonan kohyem a wepla ti yesre no e pa ne kyewa no ano beboa ye ti yesre no beji de o me ye bibi fa human ye hu ankasa esuro sese wo bampa untumi wo konso untumi sese a bridge ye pa ban kyew yesre no eni diem kotodwogu fom yesre no twede ni emehwe bridge kakrama ye
to bridge na aye nansen no enye kra sai kra tuturu nkola na omuko school han hea na omufa bridge na sai kra anten emetuma ka za mesra ban so omuboana enye bridge man nkola na mutum fa so nko school
ni aya ye de da bia na me kan sai esa ban obeye bridge no maye enye sa ye ma ombeyira ya faso kwa ya penifos po aye koye bebo ya swankasa etimi gira o emi srabansa mi srano enimo ya ombeye bridge no maye nyesa ye ma ombeto ombeyira
omukasa wiye en assemblyman ya award men's komote electoral area honorable Mohammed Kwabena Ali Chinto onosoje pra odensem wede to twase efibromo eyesa bridge edisi ho no enyade a enfie bebre ye atwemo no empenifo aba ho se mo besiesie mpo ede amade shomo ewo ho no ekama yesensem a omode ko municipal assembly no enyade empenifo de anu ye bia ede ebre
okoto ene assembly because assembly ye nyina ye behia our committees from committee to general assembly once committee and a committee ehwe adansi bridges ewo ebusanya isa sa committee so na me ncha de meka ho nti ida to ho ye propose say yanko kaso nyina yanko engineer hwe bibia enya say ye ba bridge na ya bridge ye ko eso ampa ye ba ha e ko bibibiri enena assembly na ngasa asalete 4 communities en kasoa ye opekuma aliko any committee ha any CP sanka ye be bridge ya design wi ya bibie wi but akaze kodata baba field na wa obaba ejuma ena ende edigina hayo the bridge we beto na mo ache nyende
ye kokko obome eho na asuna aye afnaso afohene ede nsam twudwa wo kyerɛ sɛ sabrey na nada wasi adua ya wotoso mienu na yie na duru so ono ye obome hema na wohwɛ sɛde yie ne frase ya wo mo ye no a mebunu no aye wandwene sɛ wi no ntampe yen ene wo mpɛsɛ wo meka bom no wo nom ɛbasa no a wo mani abriye pa nti wa wo ni kyerem ho no wo mabambofo aye krado ya wagere bambo mu nti se wo baba be jam anade a na ne wo mo akwa abasa obeba na nso se wo baba yetutu asem ne basabasa akofa ntokwa abesa ejapade de a ene afnaso afo hene se we ye kokobo ya wode ema wo
Owokewu obame nana ekwa moasumeni edutudwa enesene kokobo pa no de ma wona mo ewo chese ekrom ho mo a ene acheso mo ehu se nipa abodomtim ewo ha na sebio omo befri aye enema ensem fata ebo chese ebi omo aboma no ewo ho na sa kokobo yi ode ekodi mo se ohima ya wato no mo sie do ewo eye ekrom ho a enunti na wotwi ye etwemu edi sisa na wotwi mu no omo de ye no ehhehye so ewo eye krom ho eye na hima nana dawa asieduwa yotoso mienu ena wato na no mosiedu ohima na owo obome na odi atodwa se embebre no enhyemu se ekoso a na titiro ebiabu ni bi efrase wona titiro omo efandroponi no ade ensefato mo yedi kokromo ni mosi nana ekua moaso menese motwum ho emfre ho
bia fabrinya ho we pa no se yate se eye kokko ne environment no amanfo ko ran so se anapi na mai some obia mbie ni store free me ndai ko na ne ka say enye no kwesa bibia sansie na de ka say ye ne obome ne ye no aniti bome e de bebe o store na so mo aben ahembe no so ne de ana wahwe mo ho ye se mo mbie mo store bra oba pani edam pam afi activities bebe ne be koso ye besre adofo se mo nyina amwa na dwumadi no enti me nkoso na no ye kan ye se efi kwesi da ko mo bia nya na nyemwa bia anyemwa bia o ya nyemwa mo nya no
na kasa wiye afi so ahemfo ne bi omo ebe ye no bi echipre ene twetwe nkomo edisi etudwa
ni fama ye ni abre ko man ni abre bomoman ani abre eyi na ye beye no enye nkwada yie ye be kira mamra ni amanne ama mansan nyina hu se ko wunso ye wa mamra efe ne di mu ko eyi no ne gina mu pa no eye dwada ya wada na memreda
aha na brema kwan ema pram to breakfast ya de besomo wa netwata obenu bosume no ne da ye teso aduonu ofimpi mienu ne aduonu miensam no ye de ni nyina esi ama wasedanko ma wo mo abu ansam ni nyina no na afi wo mo a echichima fidie no na wa wo hwe ye fie de asada kese mo piafo ena ye de ema wo edin ya mejeso eye Hajia Bintu Saana medwasi ama mu nyina emu ene hwe